Can porn actually be addictive, or is there something else going on here? Laci Green investigates.
And Noah Church responds. YouTuber Laci Green has weighed in on the porn addiction debate. Let's see what she has to say.
I mean, look, obviously, here in the sex-positive community, porn isn't seen as something that's morally wrong. It's not gonna kill you or let Satan corrupt your soul.
I'm not one to say that pornography is itself immoral, or that you're putting your soul at risk by defiling yourself with the sin of masturbation or anything like that. But I do find that people in the sex-positive community are afraid to admit that there are morally and ethically questionable practices in the pornography industry. I know that there are women who act in porn and say, this is my choice, this is what I like to do, it empowers me, and I'm sure that there are those who say that and they mean it. But I'm also sure that there are those who say that because it's good for business, and that's what they're told they should say. And it's bad for business to say, I use drugs and alcohol to get through these scenes because I really don't enjoy them, all my pleasure is faked, and I'm probably going to get out of this as soon as I make enough money that I can pay for college or whatever. And especially when porn is produced outside the country or in questionable areas, it is possibly the product of sex slavery or abuse. And to watch these videos is to support the production of these videos. So is it morally questionable to consume porn when you don't know what it took to produce that porn? Yeah, I think it is. But that's not really what Laci's video is about. What this video is about is how it affects the users. So let's watch.
I have talked to several of you who feel that porn has harmed your relationships. There are entire huge online communities of people who claim porn has given them erectile dysfunction. Celebrities have talked about struggling with what they call porn addiction.
Terry Crews detailing on his Facebook page his addiction to pornography.
So the basic crux of the porn addiction argument is that the novelty and the abundance of internet porn is hyper-stimulating compared to real-life experiences. The thought goes that over an extended period of time, this hyper-stimulation can increase your tolerance by conditioning your body to respond to a limited amount of sexual stimuli. And some experts argue that heavy porn use can rewire the arousal circuitry in your brain.
That's a great summary. Really nothing to add here. Why do I get the feeling that I'm going to start disagreeing with things soon?
Let's talk to my buddy, Dr. Andrew Smiler.
Porn-induced erectile dysfunction describes guys who have difficulty getting it up in real life with a partner. In particular, this is porn-induced because it is the result of masturbating very frequently, very regularly to porn they're seeing online. So we're seeing it a lot more in this generation. If the beginning of their sexual experience really starts with masturbating to what are relatively high-intensity images, that kind of sets the framework for their body in a way that my generation jerking off to Playboy and Penthouse didn't really have.
But is what Dr. Smiler's talking about the same thing as addiction?
No. These potential symptoms of pornography use, like porn-induced ED, porn-induced delayed ejaculation, sexual anhedonia, reduced libido, homoerotic obsessive-compulsive disorder, these things are not the addiction in the same way that liver failure isn't alcoholism. But by the time someone who drinks reaches liver failure, they're probably an alcoholic. They haven't been drinking in healthy moderation. And in the same way, the people I work with who have developed these porn-induced symptoms are usually addicted to some degree. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. Now the real question is, does Dr. Smiler think that pornography can be addictive?
It depends a lot on how you define addiction. My training with the word addiction, there's a clear need to use that is biologically driven, and people can't get through the day without their substance.
Having to use every day, or even the frequency of the use at all, is really not a part of the definition of addiction. It can be an indicator of a problem if someone is using all the time, but an alcoholic or another addict can be an addict even if they're only using once a month. Let's see what else Dr. Smiler has to say.
Porn doesn't change the physiology throughout the body. It certainly changes neural circuitry, or masturbating to porn on a regular basis changes the neural circuitry. But it doesn't change, as far as we can tell, it doesn't change cell physiology the way that alcohol or cocaine or heroin do.
And the question at hand here is whether or not pornography can be addictive. So let's actually look at a definition of addiction. I'm going to use the one from the American Society of Addiction Medicine, and their short definition is this. Addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward, motivation, memory, and related circuitry. Dysfunction in these circuits leads to characteristic biological, psychological, social, and spiritual manifestations. This is reflected in an individual pathologically pursuing reward and/or relief by substance use and other behaviors. Addiction is characterized by inability to consistently abstain, impairment in behavioral control, craving, diminished recognition of significant problems with one's behaviors and interpersonal relationships, and a dysfunctional emotional response. Like other chronic diseases, addiction often involves cycles of relapse and remission. Without treatment or engagement in recovery activities, addiction is progressive and can result in disability or premature death. Nowhere in this definition do I see anything about changes in cell biology. Now, the long definition, which I'm not going to read because it's long, does go into detail about the changes in neural circuitry common to addicts, such as a weakening in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational thought, self-control, planning, and a strengthened brain response to triggers. For an alcoholic, that might be walking into a bar. For a porn addict, that might be being home alone with a computer or seeing a pornographic image. And we see these brain changes in porn addicts, and Dr. Smiler says that we see these neurological changes in long-term porn users. So I'm not sure how anything he says here is supposed to disqualify porn from being addictive.
So porn probably isn't like a drug like some moralist anti-porn groups claim. And in fact, thinking about porn as a drug doesn't do us any favors.
Wrong. Like a drug, porn produces powerful neurochemical reactions within the brain, and over time, it changes the function of the brain so that the user is experiencing stronger cravings, has less than self-control, needs more extreme or more content in order to reach the same high, and experiences increasing emotional, social, and physical problems that are exacerbated by the porn use. By understanding how porn is like a drug, and understanding that it can be addictive, people can better understand their own behaviors and the severity of the situation they're in. And they can get the knowledge and the help they need to really make positive changes in their lives and move past that addiction.
Is the root of the problem watching porn? Couldn't it be the case that people who have relationship problems, who have emotional difficulties, are drawn to porn as an outlet?
The old cause versus effect argument. Myself and many people who I've worked with, we didn't really have significant problems before using porn. I certainly didn't have any trauma or anything as a 9-year-old. I was just a horny boy who had an idea to search the internet for porn. But over the years, and by the time I first tried to have sex, when I was a teenager, I had erectile dysfunction. And it was porn-induced, though I didn't realize it at the time. And that really sabotaged my self-confidence, my sexual self-confidence, sabotaged many relationships over the following years, and caused me a lot of problems. And I didn't really realize that until I finally quit porn at age 24, and those problems went away. And many other people have had this experience, that the porn is what caused those problems. But there are those who had some trauma or some issues before, and they turn to porn in part to make themselves feel better about that, or as a sexual outlet, when other sexual activities don't feel safe for them. And the porn, instead of solving those problems, ends up exacerbating those problems. But what most people who make this argument don't understand is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if a person had problems before using, or if those problems came about because of using. They can still be an addict either way. If a man goes through a trauma, say he loses a loved one, and he turns to alcohol to make himself feel better, starts drinking a lot, is drinking regularly, he develops physical problems, health problems, social problems, and emotional problems because of drinking above and beyond what the trauma would have caused in and of itself. He recognizes this and he tries to quit drinking, let's say. And he's having a hard time. He finds that he's unable to quit. We wouldn't say that this guy is not an alcoholic because he had trauma that drove him to alcohol. Whether or not the trauma was there in the first place, or the problems were there in the first place, he is now an alcoholic, no matter the cause. So I'm not sure why you would make that argument for other addictive substances or behaviors.
I see a lot of folks who get in trouble for pornography, whether it is in their relationship or at work. It is almost always a symptom of something else. The thing is that men especially don't have a lot of freedom in our society to talk about those negative emotions. And when we find something that works for dealing with those emotions, we use it too much. That's what happens with pornography.
Again, it doesn't really matter if someone had problems and they turned to porn to escape those problems and deal with those, or if they just started using porn without any problems. As long as this person, this hypothetical individual, has developed significant problems related to their porn use, realized this, and is still having trouble quitting, that person is probably struggling with addiction on some level.
So here's my 2 cents. There's truth in all of these statements. Most people can use porn in a healthy way, and it's not gonna be a problem. It's not a big deal. But there are some people who maybe have some sort of personality traits or other disposition to having some porn-related side effects. And sometimes the best language that people have to describe this experience they're having is addiction, even if that isn't the most medically accurate word. And the root cause of these side effects is gonna vary based on the person.
Now, Laci Green is kind of trying to stay neutral here, which is fine, that's great. But she does seem to be suggesting that porn isn't going to be causing problems in anybody's lives. It's more of a coping mechanism that can exacerbate previously existing problems. But the problem with people saying this, with people saying that porn can't be addictive or cause issues where they didn't previously exist, is that it's dangerous. It invalidates people's experiences. When I was first searching for answers as a teenager who was completely incapable of sex, people were telling me, masturbation is normal, it's not going to be causing any sexual issues, maybe lay off of it for a week, but porn and masturbation, it's not the problem. It must be something else, like performance anxiety. So I kept using porn, I kept masturbating. I would give it a break maybe for a couple of weeks, but still wasn't able to have sex. It wasn't until 6 years later when I finally got good information that said porn can be addictive, it can cause these sexual problems, and it can take months or up to a year to recover, that I was finally able to just quit, leave it behind me, and recover from those sexual problems that I had. And that's why it's dangerous to tell people that it's not addictive, that it's not going to be causing any problems. Now, I do like Laci Green. She does give good information a lot of the time, including in this video, but there is one more piece of advice she gives that I just have to say something about.
If you do watch porn, just like everything else in life, it's best to consume in moderation.
Advising moderation is all well and good for many people who are not addicted. But if you advise moderation to someone who is an addict, it can be really problematic, because addicts have a tough time with moderation. An addict, the self-control has been eroded, and their cravings are stronger than for someone who isn't addicted. So if an addict tries to use in moderation, it can quickly become a binge, and they can lose all their progress in recovery. For many addicts, they find it much easier to go 100%. 100%, I'm not using porn anymore, that's it, it's just not part of my life anymore. It's much easier to do that for an addict than to try to have healthy moderation. Because if porn is a possibility, then they'll always be thinking about it. They'll always be craving it. But if they go 100%, a lot of them find that it's much easier to just leave it behind as part of their past and move on with their future. So for those of you out there who are struggling with porn-related problems or maybe addictive tendencies, you're not alone. There are many people out there struggling with those same issues, and you should learn about it so you can examine yourself and the role that porn has in your life, whether or not it's a healthy or an unhealthy thing for you, and what you can do about it. I just made my book, Whack, Addicted to Internet Porn, available for free as a PDF. Just subscribe to my newsletter, the link is in the description below. Just go to my website, addictedtointernetporn.com. And it contains scientific information about how porn affects us individually and culturally, a complete guide to recovery, and many people's stories who have discovered they have problems with porn and recovered. Also, if you'd like to get my help personally, I offer paid ways to do that over email, phone, or Skype. Just go to the link below in the description. Noah Church out.